The Middle East is currently a place of many changes and big power games. We see the United States and China watching each other closely in this important part of the world. Some people are even calling this a neo-Cold War, where these big countries compete for more power and friends. This competition is not just about armies, it is also about money, oil, and who gets to make the rules. The actions of these large nations have a very big impact on the everyday lives of people living in the Middle East, creating waves that spread far beyond its sandy borders and ancient cities, often shaping futures without local consent. Israel plays a very special role in this big game, especially for the United States. For many years, the US has given Israel a lot of support, including money and powerful weapons. This support started to become very strong after a war in 1967. The US saw Israel as a strong friend in a region where things were often changing. This friendship has continued for a long time, and it means that what Israel does is often closely connected to what the United States wants to see happen in the Middle East, a partnership that defines much of the region's contemporary history and its ongoing struggles for self-determination. The idea of Greater Israel is one that causes much discussion and concern. It is often described by a phrase suggesting its borders could stretch from the Nile to the Euphrates. This means it would include lands from Egypt all the way to Iraq. According to some sources, the plan would involve changing the governments in several countries. These are countries seen as unfriendly to Israel or supportive of Palestinian rights, such as Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. Such a vast territorial ambition naturally creates significant anxiety among neighboring states and international observers who fear widespread conflict. There have been reports, particularly during times of conflict like the assault on Gaza, of actions that seem to support this ambition. For example, it has been alleged that some Israeli soldiers were seen with patches on their uniforms. These patches supposedly showed a map of this larger Israel, including all of Palestine, most of Syria, and large parts of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Maps like these have also reportedly been shared by some Israeli groups and media. These visual representations of expanded borders are seen by critics as a clear indication of intent, adding fuel to the fire of regional tensions and mistrust. China is becoming a much bigger player in the Middle East, both in terms of money and in making friends with countries there. This is a new situation because for a long time the United States was the main outside power with the most influence. China is building roads, ports, and other big projects as part of its Belt and Road Initiative. It is also buying a lot of oil from Middle Eastern countries. This growing presence means that the US now has a serious competitor for influence, changing the old ways of doing things and creating new opportunities and challenges for the region's nations. China has been working hard to build stronger relationships with important countries in the Gulf, like Saudi Arabia. This is very important because Saudi Arabia has traditionally been a very close partner of the United States. Recently, China even helped Iran and Saudi Arabia, two countries that were not on good terms, to start talking to each other again and reopen their embassies. This was a big surprise to many in the West and showed that China is capable of playing a significant diplomatic role, one that the US might have been expected to play in the past. This rise of China in the Middle East has big effects on how the US and China get along, or don't get along. They are competing for access to the region's rich oil and gas supplies, which are vital for their economies. The traditional system where oil is mostly bought and sold using US dollars, known as the petrodollar system, gives the US a lot of power. China, as the world's biggest oil importer, might want to change this system to reduce its reliance on the dollar and American financial markets, which could shift global economic power significantly. The United States has a clear strategy in the Middle East, which involves trying to get more Arab countries to become friends with Israel. This effort, known as expanding the Abraham Accords, aims to include nations like Saudi Arabia. The idea is to build a strong group of countries, almost like a Middle Eastern version of NATO. This alliance would work together with Israel and the Gulf states to stand against Iran. By doing this, the US also hopes to limit the growing influence of China and Russia in this very important part of the world, creating a bloc aligned with Western interests. Iran is seen as a major challenge by both the United States and Israel. There is great concern about Iran's nuclear program, with fears that Iran might try to build nuclear weapons. This is considered a very serious threat, and military action is often talked about as a possible response. An Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear sites could lead to a much bigger war. Such a conflict might involve Iran firing missiles at Israeli cities and using its network of allied groups or proxies across the region, causing widespread instability and drawing in other global powers. Other big countries like Russia are also very active in the Middle East, adding more layers to the already complex situation. For instance, Russian mercenary forces like the Africa Corps, which used to be the Wagner Group, have been reported to use countries like Egypt to support their operations in Libya. Russia is also trying to establish naval bases in places like Sudan, which would give it more power in the Red Sea region. These actions show that Russia is keen to protect its own interests and expand its military and political reach, often challenging Western dominance in the process. In conclusion, the situation in the Middle East is shaped by many connected issues. There is the big competition between the United States and China for global influence. There are the reported ambitions related to Greater Israel, which affect regional stability. And there are the actions of other important countries like Iran and Russia, each with their own goals. All these factors create a very unsteady environment. It seems that true peace and stability are hard to find, perhaps because some powerful nations benefit from keeping things unsettled to achieve their own strategic aims, ensuring the region remains a focal point of global power struggles.